Good morning, all. This is YouTube Rumble Film Update for May 28th, 2025 for uh, the reaction to the reactors of the Rocky series. This is an updated one. I'm trying to put it as gently as possible. It's a fucking movie. It's an unrealistically written fucking movie that is not based on reality. All the people who were crying over it really need to grow up. There's a difference between a romance and an emotional scene, which I can relate to. No harm done. But you're talking about a movie that's written by a guy who purposely writes himself through a series of sequels when he should have been dead. The first sequel, he gets the shit beat out of him, yada, yada, yada. He goes against Apollo, he loses. Second sequel, he goes against Apollo halfway through the movie, he loses. I think Mickey dies, I don't even know. Don't give a shit because it's so unrealistic. He goes the second time that both of them can hardly stand up. The third sequel, he goes against Mr. T. I mean, unfortunately, Mickey dies. I don't even know if he dies in the second sequel. The third sequel, he goes against Mr. T, and the only way he can win is if he gets angry. Really? I'm surprised it isn't a racial thing. Now all of a sudden, the fourth one comes along. The most unrealistic sequel going. Again, I'm telling you, Drago is my favorite character out of the whole entire series because of his physical capability. He goes through it. Apollo goes in. Okay. This is the psychoanalyzation that needs to be brought up public domain for the idiots who are crying over the movie. Okay? The problem with Apollo, Drago did not kill him. Apollo's ego killed him. Now, Apollo relates to the movie V for Vendetta very easily. There's a scene in the movie where Evie is sitting in the living room with V, and they're watching a Shakespeare movie. Now, Evie comments, I found that movie sad. And V, they're having an educational discussion, goes, why you find it sad? And she says something that relates a lot to Apollo. She said to V, he cared more about revenge than he cared about her. Why does that relate to Apollo and Rocky IV? Apollo cared more about winning than he cared about his wife. Which is something that all the idiots who are crying over the movie are not realizing. Apollo is so stupid. He cares more about his ego. He cared more about winning against Drago. That he was a bastard enough to die in front of his wife. This is something that the idiots are not paying attention to. Apollo's ego is so big that he's willing to not care about dying in front of his wife. Now, according to the timeline, conveniently, the movie was made in '88, which was the time at the time of the USSR, trying to cram everything into this 9-minute thing. Okay, that was the time that Gorbachev was in office. USSR, United Soviet Socialistic Republic. Russia is an awesome country, but it was led at the time by an asshole. Okay, yes, unfortunately, Drago was used by being a chess piece. Nothing wrong with Drago. I admire the man. I admire his wife and I admire his trainers. Because at the time, back in the 90s and the 80s, they used machines because machines push you to that gray area. And that's basically what Drago was using. They wanted to push him. Nothing wrong with that. Now everyone's bitching in the US that Drago was using steroids. Well, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Because Lance Armstrong, the fucking bastard on the US territory, was using steroids for over 25 years. So don't complain about Drago using steroids because Lance Armstrong, the bicycle rider, was using steroids for 25 years, which basically the reason why he won his gold medals. Now, Apollo goes into the ring and gets killed. Why? Because he's too stupid to not go into the boxing ring with Drago. You're hitting at 1,850 pounds, almost 2,500 pounds, the same equivalent to an alligator biting you. Really? You're willing to put your wife through your death? Fuck you, Apollo. His ego killed him, not Drago. Yes, the Soviet Union was at the time going against the US because the US had a problem with the Soviet Union. And at the time, yeah, the US had a problem with Gorbachev and Gorbachev had a problem with the US. Because both sides had a huge ego problem, and they still do. But they don't now because Gorbachev was out of office. Boris Yeltsin came in, eliminated half the communists. Putin came in, the wonderful man that he is, a conservative advocate of freedom, aided to fix Russia. But of course, the US can't get its head out of its ass about Russia's past. So now, all of a sudden, Rocky goes up against Drago. Now, how the fuck do you go in and survive an alligator bite? This is where my sarcasm comes in. Why are you crying over a movie about a guy who's purposely writing himself through because he wants to beat everyone? I can understand you crying over a romance scene. I can understand you crying over an emotional scene where something goes on, you have a death somewhere, and unfortunately, someone dies. That's all well and good. But it does not impress me when Sylvester Stallone purposely writes him through Rocky IV to survive Parkinson's. He goes through Rocky V, doesn't show any signs of Parkinson's after the shower scene, gets the shit beat out of him by Tommy, survives through the Parkinson's through Rocky VI, survives through the Parkinson's through Rocky VII, survives through Rocky VIII, admits it in Rocky VIII that he has Parkinson's, and all of a sudden you don't see any of them. You don't see any sign of them in Rocky IX, but yet he's going to go through the Parkinson's in the MMA and the UFC and in miraculously Rocky X, according to the media. Really? Come on. Really? Grow up. Stop the crying unless you have a legitimate reason to cry over it. Apollo is an asshole. Drago, I admire the man. So grow up. I'll see you guys later.